Hi, I'm Jean Wong from the College of New Jersey.
And I'm Hanson Waring from Teachers College, Columbia University. And we're here in my living room in Upper Manhattan, New York City. We're talking to you about our book, Conversation Analysis in Second Language Pedagogy. And Jean is going to start by saying just a few words about how she got into CA.
I first learned of CA when I was doing a master's in teaching English as a second language at UCLA in the early 1980s. And I was taking a discourse analysis class, and the professor mentioned that there's this professor in the sociology department at UCLA named Emmanuel Shegloff, and he does this stuff called CA, conversation analysis, which looks at the structure of talk and interaction. And I had thought, gee, well, if I'm going to be a teacher of English and I need to know about how grammar works, maybe I would benefit from knowing how conversation works as well. And so I knocked on Shegloff's door, had a chat with him. I got interested in taking CA courses, and I could really see a nice fit between CA and applied linguistics and teaching English as a second language. I really thought that CA would be useful as a tool in teaching English as a second language.
And we met in 2002 in Denmark at the International Conference on Conversation Analysis. And by that time, Jean had already been pursuing the connection between CA and applied linguistics for 15, 20 years.
Right, 15 years.
Yeah,
15, 20.
Okay. And I was relatively new to CA, but I was utterly fascinated by its precision and rigor. We had a lot in common. We were both applied linguists, we were both conversation analysts. We were very excited about sharing the immense findings about us of conversation analysis with the teachers around the world. But Denmark was not the beginning of the book. It was the beginning of our friendship, and the book came later. Maybe just so we're going to try to tell you what we're trying to accomplish in this book a little bit. And the first thing we're trying to do is to synthesize the findings of conversation analysis on interactional practices, the basic interactional practices. And the way we do this is to create this heuristic model that has these basic practices such as turn-taking practices, sequencing practices, overall structuring practices, and the repair practices. And so everything is in that one small picture. So that was for example, if you go to the repair chapter, you would really, instead of reading 6 or 7 primary articles on repair, you would see all the information on repair from these articles in that one chapter. It serves as a really good reference book for us. We even use it for ourselves to look up stuff. So even if you're not interested in language teaching, that is a good place to go to look for basic stuff in CA.
And the title of the book is Conversation Analysis in Second Language Pedagogy, and that really gets at our underlying theme for the book as well as our overriding goal, and that is to connect and bridge CA concepts and insights with second language pedagogy, second language teaching and learning. We try to make the CA concepts and findings very accessible to language teachers. We offer a lot of activities. The goal really is to connect CA with second language teaching. And so in that sense, the book is unique. It's the first book-length treatment of CA and its connection to second language pedagogy.
And just to give you some examples of how these interactional practices we talk about in the book are a real concern to language learners, we'll just give you a few examples.
For example, chapter 2 in the book is all about the organization of turn-taking in conversation. The turn-taking system is a lot more intricate and detailed than we actually realize. You know, when we take turns in conversation, it's not just my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. For example, there are turn constructional units that we construct in order to take a turn. And for any next speaker, you don't just wait for a pause before you come in. If you wait for a pause, you might be waiting too long. You might be not coming in at the proper time. But ESL and especially EFL students don't necessarily know this. And so we outline the structure of turn-taking system for teachers so that they, in turn, can show learners and teach learners about how to engage in turn-taking.
And in the sequencing chapter, for example, we spend quite a bit of time talking about pre-sequences. So there's a pre-invitation to invitation, there is a pre-announcement to announcement. And that kind of knowledge became was came to be really revealing, hugely revealing for my students in Japan this summer. I was teaching our Tokyo program, and the MA students in Japan said, we thought Americans were very direct. We didn't know they would go through all this pre-stuff to get to the point. So that was very interesting.
And we also have 2 chapters on the overall structuring of conversation. There's one chapter on openings and another chapter on closings. And these are also, again, present the details of openings and closings for language teachers. These openings and closings are a lot more detailed and intricate than people often realize. For example, let me just tell you anecdotally, my daughter was living in a house with a Korean student originally who studied English as a foreign language, and the Korean student came downstairs from her bedroom to ask my daughter Monica a question, and then after Monica answered her question, the student said, "Thank you, Monica, goodbye," and walked back upstairs. And Monica had said, "Gee, there was no need to say goodbye. She wasn't leaving the house, and I wasn't leaving the house, so why did she say goodbye?" I mean, perhaps just saying okay or thanks would have been an appropriate closing, but maybe she was taught in language classrooms that you say goodbye, when you end a conversation. But we show, we talk about not only correct usage, but what's appropriate, and CA helps us to elucidate what is appropriate in terms of conversation.
And in our repair chapter, for example, we talk about self-repair. And again, the idea that native speakers would stumble and they would stutter, they would make mistakes, and then they would have very systematic ways of addressing those problems was hugely revealing for my students in Japan this summer. And they said, we were so worried about making perfect sentences. We didn't want to open up our mouth before we speak. Now that to know that you can do that and there are systematic methods of addressing those problems was very liberating for them. Was really so that was just another example of how understanding the repair practices is just an important component of one's language learning journey.
Mm-hmm. And now we'd like just to briefly talk about the unique features of our book. As I mentioned before, this is the first book-length treatment that connects CA with applied linguistics and teaching English as a second language for the ESL as well as EFL context. And one of the really fine points of our book, we think, is that we offer a lot of examples that come from real recorded and transcribed conversations that actually took place. There are lots of examples of this kind, and it really helps to validate what we say about conversation and conversational structures. And another key features is that it's practical and accessible to language teachers. As Hansen had said earlier, you don't have to wade through a lot of primary CA research in order to understand conversational structures through CA framework.
And one other feature is at the end of each chapter we have a whole section on teaching these practices. So we have 2 kinds of activities. We have awareness-raising activities and we have practicing activities. For example, Jean created this wonderful teaching activity called WPPG, and she has all these real conversation openings scrambled up, all the turns are scrambled up, and the students are supposed to put them all together, and it worked. We both used it in our graduate level courses,
right.
And it worked really well with us students. They laughed and they learned, and everybody said, wow, it was really more complicated than we thought, and just a few lines in the opening of the telephone conversation. So, okay, I think that pretty much sums it up.
That was a pre-closing.
And here comes the closing. Thank you so much for listening, and hope you enjoy the book, and we would love to hear from you, and we would love to hear your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.